And we're live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session of the vacation rental through the COVID-19. I'm here today with Pierre Becerril, from the CEO of Transparent, the leading data company that will share with you today a deep dive into today's data in vacation rental, understand the impact of the coronavirus on all of us, and let's discuss the strategies solution together. And Pierre, I give the mic to you.
Hi, Moriya. Thanks for the brief introduction. So, hi everyone. I'm just going to share a few words before we get started, just on the logistics of this presentation. So make sure you've checked all of your audio settings so you can hear us correctly. Note that we cannot hear you. So if you want to ask us any question, we will hold a small Q&A session at the end of this presentation. And you should have a Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom app that allows you to ask us if you want anonymously questions. So feel free to use this during the presentation. We will address them all at the end, okay? And Moriya, maybe while I'll speak, if you want to put yourself in mute, I will do the same. So we make sure there is no background noise, and that should be perfect. So that's about the logistics very briefly. About this webinar, it will be 30 minutes. I will speak 10 minutes, a little bit about the context of the short-term rental industry, and then Moriya will speak 10 minutes from her perspective as well. And then we will have a Q&A of 10 minutes. And basically, I want to start by saying that, you know, our crisis, obviously the travel industry is very, very affected by our travel industry is very affected by the current crisis. That is, in addition of a health and economic crisis, a mobility crisis. For this reason, we've put together some content on the ctransparent.com website, which is my company, that you can access to gather free intelligence, and I will present to you some of these metrics. So just a quick word about my company. We're the leading data company for short-term rental. We aggregate data on 34 million listings worldwide, and we track everything that is not a hotel. So if it has a kitchen, I have it in my database, basically, that you can, you know, any property that you can stay as a traveler that does not, that is not a hotel, all right? So now how this industry, the short-term rental industry, the vacation rental industry has been impacted by the crisis. Well, we're gonna look at first this slide that shows us the impact of the drop in demand by different OTAs. We're looking at Airbnb, Booking.com, and Expedia here. So you can see here year-on-year difference on number of reservation by OTA. So you can see that at the beginning of the year started normally, and then slowly it decreased. The first Italian lockdown appeared here around 23rd of February, and then really here it started decreasing until the end of the first quarter, end of March, where we hit number as low as minus 97% of reservation on each of the top OTAs. So I would mention, interestingly, Airbnb dropped first, probably because they have more of a leisure and more European as well exposure than Expedia, for instance, that is a little bit more US, and Booking.com maybe managed to maintain a higher amount of reservation thanks to maybe their corporate demand, right? But this is interesting to see how the decrease of demand has affected basically all of the main OTAs in the short-term rental. Another point that is interesting is to look at the same numbers but broken down by countries. So if you look at the demand by country, obviously Italy started first. You can see the yellow line here going down much faster, but eventually it is affecting every market. You know, now we're down 98, 97, 99% in most of the large short-term rental markets that are actually also the most affected one by number of cases of coronavirus. If we look at the cancellation, this has been also a big impact in the market. We've seen a lot of cancellations, and we've read a lot about it in the press. You can see, you know, the difference by areas here. What I think is interesting is you can see here the real trend of cancellation started happening beginning of March in Europe, really had a big peak in March 24th. And then it really sort of came to the North American market 2 weeks later, but eventually everyone got affected, right? So you've got 2 waves of cancellations, the first initial waves, and then a second waves that it increased a little bit as well for the Easter holiday period. But basically most markets are really heavily impacted. What is interesting as well is to see the difference of the cancellation impact on the different type of market. So we will speak about this a bit later, but urban versus leisure market have been impacted differently. You can see here, leisure market, so more traditional, you can think of beach, more rural, more mountain travel, has been impacted later than urban market with, let's say, 2 weeks delay versus the urban that have been really the first one to be impacted. And that is important because the booking window on the urban market are much shorter. So there is much less reservation now to cancel, but there is still much more demand on the book for the leisure market where usually travelers book ahead of time. Okay, so big drop in demand, cancellations, and in parallel, same amount of inventory. So we're showing here the amount of supply on the top platforms has basically stayed the same. There is not a big drop in demand, in supply in the main markets. And for this reason, it is even more compressed because there is almost no demand, but the same amount of supply in the market. All right. So this is something interesting that we've seen. Another point that we've seen in the market is that lengths of stay for short-term rentals have gone up. So normally in a short-term rental, in an Airbnb or in a VRBO, the average stay is around 4.5 nights per booking. Okay, and we can see that starting week 10, there were much fewer reservations, but most of them were actually longer. So the average was actually 7 to 8 days reservation. Okay, and this is actually something we've seen across most markets. There's been a big increase in the reservation period and lengths of stay in all of the markets, and we expect this to continue growing because all of the sort of city, short getaways of two nights, a weekend escape is basically a dead market for now. Okay. This is an interesting chart. Just I wanted to show you briefly. This is the Morgan Stanley sort of projection of the cases in the United States. Okay, so what I think is interesting is you can see that Morgan Stanley expects the case to sort of decrease the number of new cases per day, and this also sort of match the high season in most markets. At least in the northern hemisphere, we'll see that we expect that by June, July, there will be much less cases with a broader test available. And what we hope is that this will allow some level of demand to revive, at least in the leisure market. You will see here there is all of the high season, which is around this area, that should be protected by new cases, and eventually, if their projection are correct, they also anticipate some potential second wave, which will affect mostly the low season for most of the northern hemisphere short-term rental markets. Okay, so this is an interesting chart, and what I would suggest you to do is take that chart here and plug on top of it what is your revenue per period, so you see how much of your revenue is going to be directly impacted by the high cases period. Okay, and just a couple of slides to wrap up before I go back to you. I wanted to show you this interesting pie chart that shows the amount of domestic travel on the short-term rental market by country. So what we believe, and this is obviously we can't predict the future, but what we believe is that that domestic demand is going to be picking up on the short-term rental market much stronger, and some markets are already prepared for that. If you see the United States, for instance, already 90% of the short-term rental demand is internal, it's domestic. France, for instance, is 2/3. So there is already markets that are ready to absorb and used to absorb domestic demand, and for the others, well, they will have to be able to create this new demand or to answer to that demand. And unfortunately, some markets, won't be able to generate as much local demand and domestic demand. I can think of Caribbean, for instance, and other markets where most of it is international travelers. Will be harder, but for those who can, it's time to turn to domestic. Again, the last point is really, I've been saying about leisure versus urban. We think that short-term rentals have a natural advantage. The fact that our properties are more isolated, more spread out, and have more amenities, and Moriya will speak about this in a minute, will offer, I think, better options for travelers in the near future. And we think that short-term rental in some areas, including leisure, will actually grow stronger after this. Okay, so you can already see people are getting smarter and marketing the current crisis in their listing pages, and we see this is a trend, right? And finally here, really briefly, showing you what we see going forward. This is the picture of the demand as of today. So you see here the strong line shows you how the demand has been until now. So this is real executed demand, and the dotted lines here show you what is the demand on the book. So you can see that the urban markets have much less demand on the book versus last year. So, here that says this line that there's 75% less demand versus last year. At the same time, instead, the leisure market are actually stronger. And if you see at the end of the year, people have maintained confidence and they've not canceled. So we're almost à la par versus last year demand for the end of year in leisure. I think this is some message of hope for at least part of our industry in the short-term rental market, and that leisure, are most likely better prepared to the post-crisis era. Okay, and that's about it for me. So if you have any questions, feel free to write them down in the Q&A part. I'd be happy to take it at the end, and also happy to chat in our booth number 868 if you want to join us later. And Moriya, this is all yours. I'm going to stop sharing and put myself on mute.
So yes, so hi everybody, welcome back. Yes, Pierre, thank you very much for all this super important and very interesting data. Of course, some of it is something that we could all maybe predict, but some of these data are surprising and giving some hope. I want to talk a little bit about the trends of what we're expecting. Not everything can be collected by data already, but as we are professional in the short-term stay, in vacation rental, we have a lot of prediction about how this situation will affect us and what to be expected. And I'll be happy to share it with you right now. Yes, I hope that everybody can see it right now. So first I would like to introduce myself and the company. So I'm Moriya Rockman. I'm the founder and the CMO of Smiling House Luxury Alliance. We are a company that getting together professionals, homeowners, and property managers from 24 different countries in the world, all focusing on luxury, but not anymore, or not only. These days, one of the things that we evidenced and what we did is extended our offer not only to luxury places, but also to getaway places. And I will talk about it as one of the trends. So facilities. Many people are now in lockdown. Many people are staying at home in beautiful apartment in city, and they're really wishing for the day that they can go on vacation. But when they will go on this vacation, I guess that one of the things that they would like to have is the different facilities of what they have today. You still see me, everybody? Yes. Okay. So if you are a property manager or professional in our segment, I'm very much recommending you to think right now about how to add this kind of facilities. A jacuzzi, a hot tub, maybe another swing in the garden. This will all be super appreciated once people will be able to travel again. High cleaning standards. Well, it's not a secret, and people after this or in between the two waves of coronavirus expected to come back maybe in the next winter, will expect a very high cleaning standards. This is a point where vacation rental maybe have a bit of advantage in front of hotels that have to maintain 700 rooms sometimes. Here, one property owner, one property manager can take very neat, good high level of standards of cleaning, and should be very much emphasized on it, even in the description of the property. Another big trend that we see is, of course, the OTAs, the spread of the OTAs and the social media exposure. Some property managers been disappointed from the OTAs that they're working with, from the automatic cancellation. Some of them realized that once the OTA decided for them that they can no longer host in their place, they evidence 100% cancellation with no future. I think this is the point where a lot of us professionals realize that we have to wider and to put the eggs in different baskets. Means search now for more media channels, make your own website. Of course, keep on assisting the OTAs, but don't be dependent 100% on them, and look for other partners and other channels that will be making sure that you won't disappear when some situation like this will appear again. So getaway destination, we talked about it, Pierre mentioned it, and we in Smiling House very much believe in it. And as I say in the beginning, this is what we're doing today mainly. We are offering remote locations, some of them luxurious, and some of them the biggest luxury, which I believe it's a true luxury, is nature as your neighbor. People would like to travel within their own country, driving distance to remote locations, to discover the outside, to discover the simplicity, and they will stay longer, as we saw also in Pierre data. They will stay for 2 weeks or even more, like it used to be. But yeah, also the people who can afford to fly with their private jets will be the first ones to jump on it, and they're already doing it. We can tell that it's this segment almost didn't was not affected by so much by the corona. We see luxury properties in very full occupancy, and no cancellation for further dates, especially if they are somewhere in the end of the year or even for the summertime. These people are more confident about their abilities to travel, and they won't give up this part of enjoying life, or at least that's what we hope so. And yeah, let's talk about not only the nice things with a lot of hope. Winter is coming again, will come again. And what to expect from the ski season 2020-2021. Smiling House is a company that very much active in the European market, and for us as a company based in the Swiss Alps, of course, the ski destinations is one of our main markets. Right now, I can share with you that we see bookings for the winter, but I believe that once some of the countries, some of the destinations will get out of lockdown, people will have more confidence to press on the button and book it. At least that's what we hope so. The urban markets, as we saw, we predict that it will be the last one to recover. And I'm very much recommending for the ones of you that are hosting in urban markets, again, emphasize on the facilities, emphasize on gardens, on rooftops, whatever you can to give this feeling of freedom and cleanliness, like we mentioned before. What we expect to see in the market, in our community of vacation rental, we're expecting to see consolidations and alliances. We know that not all of the companies will survive this situation, and we believe that more small companies, property owners, property managers would like to join in alliances and to create bigger power and diversity of markets, that in the case of a situation like this is also keeping you on the safe side, not to be depending only on one market, and in this way to be more on the safe side. And this is what we're doing in Smiling House, and I'll be happy if you join our booth later on to learn more about it. And the last thing that we really see as a big trend that we should all be prepared for, and this I let you see it in a video. So people would like to travel more in families. People would like to keep the possibility to be with their beloved ones, the one that they couldn't be in touch in the last few months, maybe grandparents, 3-generation travel. People would like to stay safe and to stay together. So we're expecting places that can host more than 8 people, more than 10 people, to get a lot of demand. And I think that right now we can be ready to look at your questions and to try and answer them.
Super, thanks, Moriya. Thanks a lot for the insights and for sharing your view as well of the market. I think just like we mentioned earlier, if someone joined after, like you said, there is a small Q&A button on Zoom. If you want to use that, you can ask us anything anonymously, so we can start answering some of them. So I can start with the first one. Frank, you asked if there are slides that will be available. I do believe this is being recorded, so I do believe OTC will be able to share the recording so you can see that. And if not, happy to share our email as well and contact details, and you can just ask us or just join us in the booth. So I'm going to share my screen here so you've got our contact details as well for anything you need. Right, so we have a question here from Roberto, who's asking if we've detected that the supply has been shortened and if people have been shifting to long-term stays. So that's a very good question. Like I mentioned earlier, what we've seen is most of the inventory is still out there on the OTAs. One of the reasons for that is, this is a reputation business, right? It's almost consumer to consumer. So the value of the reviews on the short-term rental platforms like Airbnb, Vrbo, Moriya Booking, etc., is very important. And that's why what we've seen is that most managers and most hosts, they haven't removed their accounts. They've kept all of their accounts. They've kept all of their reviews, even though they are indeed looking for alternatives. So we've seen long-term rental platform have a surge in inventory. And we've seen also mid-term rental platform, being very attractive for these operators and hosts who are now desperately looking for, extra demand. And I would say it's especially the case for those who are on the lease-to-lease model, rent-to-rent model. So those who are actually paying rent to then do short-term rental, these have even bigger necessity of cash flow, and that's why we've seen. So that's the answer for Roberto. And Moriya, I think you've got a question as well on owner-centric approach during Corona. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
Super.
It's harder to lose owners and okay. What's the opinion about the right balance in the current situation between the owners? I'm not sure I understood it all the way, the question. So Pierre, can you help in that? Did you understand what he's asking?
Let me maybe, you know what we could do? Let's let Roberto, if you want to clarify, feel free to type an extra one and we can take another one. I think there were a question that Moriya, maybe we can answer on cleaning guidelines while Roberto think about the question. Cleaning guidelines and standards that vacation rental property managers can take to promote this. So Moriya, have you seen any guidelines already that have been published by the government or things that you can share?
I don't think it's a guideline from the government, but of course the hygienic thing is it's a must. The government is more sharing some kind of guidelines for quarantine, but we hope that this is not where the vacation rental industry is going to, only for 14 days of quarantine. So for quarantine, of course, we have professional cleaning companies that are really making a special cleaning that's made for this issue, and you can find it in each country. Just by Google it, but as a cleaning standards for your vacation rental, your normal vacation rental, you have to emphasize about deep cleaning. We see today that Booking.com also shared a new standards with another company, and there's more companies that focusing on the cleaning and cleaning services that going together with the OTAs to ensure that that the standards of the cleaning will be high and professional. But even if you do it yourself, you better do it and emphasize it just like another amenity, just like another standard that you give to your property. We are making sure we are cleaning, we are doing a cleaning before, a cleaning after, or extra cleaning during your stay can be available in a fair price, etc.
Super. Thanks, Moriya. I think there's a couple more questions that we can take. We've got time. So yeah, asked me if the insights were actually on vacation rental demand. So everything that you've seen was only vacation rental. So really the cut here is if it has a kitchen and you can rent it, or the other way to see it is if it has not a check-in counter like a hotel. So this includes villas, houses, apartments, hotel apartments, etc., apart hotel, etc. So this is really short-term rental that we presented today. And then I wanted also to discuss and address Daniela's question on on the fact that, you know, we share some hope for winter booking, and if we should already start to market for winter booking, if, you know, property managers or the industry in general should start to market for winter booking, or if we should wait that the borders reopen. I don't know, Moriya, do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, of course. We are, you know, we always thinking about winter coming, and yes, we should look at this situation of the next winter with the hope that everything will turn to normal, and to try to grab as many bookings as possible, to promote it, not to give up, to offer a diversity of offers in winter destination, and you know, times will tell. If vaccination will come, if we will be more ready. But I believe that people, after being through this, will act differently and travel differently. And by the winter next year, they will keep this kind of new traveling and will keep booking accordingly. Now I see, Pierre, we have another question about which one of the continent, the markets, US or Europe, will come back faster. And I will let you answer it from the database.
Sure.
And tell it later from my knowledge.
Sure. Yeah, so maybe for everyone first, if you want market specific information, we have put on our website on ctransparent.com a free sort of tracker for the search for the market. So you will have a number of markets. There is a question about Asia Pacific. We don't have a lot of markets, but I invite you to talk to our sales team, because we're able to provide data as well there. And for Europe versus US, I would say it's not really about Europe or US. We think there will be demand. It's more about, like I said, it's going to be urban versus leisure. So it's going to be mostly, in our opinion, you know, drive to market destination that you can go that are not necessarily, you know, the long way destination that you used to travel to by flight. By plane, it will be shorter, like nearer destinations that you can attend. And in our opinion, these are the ones that will already pick up. And there is another question about if travelers will have to be, you know, will be able to have certificates. Obviously, we can't answer this on our from our perspective, but from what we see is it might not be necessary to have certificates, because what we're offering are, you know, single units that are isolated from the others, that we can self-check to, you know, we can make sure that after every checkout, we leave the properties empty 2 days. So we make sure that if the virus was there, he has time to die. So we really can enforce a different approach to make sure that the properties are safe, like Moriya was saying on the cleaning point. And I think this will be an option for you know, nearby traveler to just escape the cities and go to the to closest to the nature or more rural areas, like you were saying.
I want to talk a little bit more about it. As a company based in Europe, I believe that the European market will heal faster. Also from the point of view that the borders are open, and once this lockdown will finish, people will travel between countries. I can tell you that we already getting requests from travelers within Europe to travel to different destinations to June, July, and August, and they most likely will go to destination where they can use the train or the car, unless the flight and the airlines. Not mentioning the jet setters, of course, that can just will continue normally. So, and also because this coronavirus hit US later, I believe it will be also later in time where people start to travel to the US. There's a last question from Diego. If we can talk more about the importance of communication between the property managers and the travelers. So as a host as well, as a property manager, I would like to answer that I think that right now is the most important time to be in maximum touch with your future and with your past travelers, to tell about the company, how you're doing, let them know that you are still in business, that you are active, that you are having high cleaning standards, that you are waiting for them, maybe with promotions, maybe with special prices that fits this situation right now. I think that this is the time, I mentioned it before, to open and to be active in all the social media and to get in as many direct contact with your future travelers.
Super, Moriya, thanks. I think we're just right out of time, so wanted to thank everyone again. Moriya, thanks so much for organizing this this presentation. and thanks for OTC. And there's been more questions, so we'll try to answer them, on the booth or separately. And thanks, everyone.
Thanks.